More people, California, Washington.
Yeah.
We got some more bodies coming on. Nice.
As people log in here, we asked if you guys could put in the chat box where you're from, what position you play, grad year, any of that good stuff. Would love to hear more about you as we start to spread our message here. So we'll hop into it because we can't start the ball game late, right? Pitcher's hot, got to get him on the bump. So welcome everybody to this special Tuesday night, bringing together some of the best brands in, not only baseball, but, youth sports in general. My name's Nelson Gord. I'm representing NCSA, Next College Student Athlete. We're part of the IMG family, the Endeavor family. I'm also the head baseball coach at Harper College. And I don't think the slide has changed, has it? Can you guys see the slide?
Still the logos.
Still logos. Let's try this again.
What's up, Kevin Armstrong, the mayor? That's fantastic. Old college teammate on board. I love it.
There we go. Now we got logos are gone, right?
Yes. You got headshots.
Pictures. Now. Okay, there we go. Even though you see our faces, there is our headshot. So like I said, I'm Nelson Gore, the director of baseball with NCSA. I'm also the head coach at Division III Junior College, Harper College, right here outside of Chicago. The reason I do this, the reason I joined NCSA is that my recruiting story was a little bit unique in the fact that I was not recruited. I was looking at schools to go play Division III football, and baseball is kind of an add-on. Baseball is my first passion, but football being a fall sport, obviously you get the coaches coming in, talking up their programs. So that was the only way that I was exposed to anything college. Nobody in my family had ever been to school before, had ever, let alone graduate from it. So it was something that was novel to my family and, something that we didn't really know what the next steps were. Fortunately for me, my best friend's father was our head high school baseball coach, kind of steered me in the right path. Had a really good senior year and ended up walking on at the University of Illinois, Chicago, UIC, as they were rebuilding their program. And, from there I had a chance to play a little bit professionally and have stayed in the game ever since. So I have a real passion for the recruiting aspect of it. And I know there's so much that this group of guys that are on this call and each of the things that we do can really help to streamline, your efforts and make things easier. And that's why we're here. So I'll hand it off to Tom. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself next?
Sure. Again, Tom Korek. Thanks, Nelson. I am one of the co-founders of SkillShow and SkillShow.com. We have been a video services provider doing scouting videos, recruiting videos since 2001. We actually have been filmed every perfect game showcase since the beginning of 2001. So when you see guys in the big leagues, Mike Trout's, the Bryce Harpers, the guys who are already retired by now, future Hall of Famers, we've got all their high school video footage and showcase footage for 20 some years now. But as it relates to this group, and the reason we even started SkillShow to try to do video for athletes in sports was, I grew up in Philadelphia area and I was a pretty under-recruited high school athlete, both football and baseball. And I had a couple of schools that were interested in me, and I ended up signing a Division I college scholarship to Villanova. I've got an old teammate here on the call, it looks like, which is awesome. But it was interesting because I got drafted at Villanova and I played 4 years of professional baseball. And I look back and I could never realize how a guy who could play professional baseball, and there's other guys like that we played with in college, just didn't get recruited by a lot of schools. And so I went to a school that was nearby, near home, but at the same time, I was recruited by a school down in Florida, and I was recruited by the team that won the College World Series. And when you look back at the process and you think, how can the number one team in the country recruit a guy and another school in Florida and then a school down the street recruit him? And that's it. Like 3 schools were interested. And then I had the ability to play at the Division I level. I had the ability to play at the professional level. The question really was, how come more schools didn't know who I was? And the answer, and it's really the reason we have this call, it's the reason why we're all doing what we do, is that as a family and you guys as athletes and you guys as parents, you can be proactive in the process. And that being proactive to get your name, your likeness, your video, your transcripts, your grades, all that kind of stuff in front of decision makers, those who are college coaches, is something full in your ability. So from a SkillShow perspective, we tackled kind of the video element. We do the video portion. There's a lot more to the puzzle of recruiting, but that's kind of the lane we try to stay in, and that's our niche. So we hope tonight to share knowledge on that, information on that. But I can probably speak for all of us. We've all lived that experience of being a recruited athlete at a high school and learning, and hindsight's always easier than you guys looking forward, is that you can do things to make yourself more visible to college recruiters, especially the schools you want to go to. So that's kind of my quick background and why we're on the call today from my end. But so Britt, why don't you go ahead?
My name's Britt Smith. I've done a little bit of everything. In high school, I was a guy, people reclass now. I graduated and started college at 17 years old. The recruiting process for me was Stephen F. Austin State came to see a kid that was pitching against us in a game. There was no internet back then. There was no social media. Either you were seen on the field and they liked it and followed up on you, or you just didn't play. And fortunately, I had a great game that night against the guy they came to see, and it led to some conversations, and that was the only school that even recruited me. I got there, and they announced they were going to drop their program by my senior year. And so I transferred out, went to a junior college, and then finished at West Texas A&M. Started coaching there, spent 20 years, coached every single level, Division I, Division II, NAIA for a year, and then spent 15 years as the head coach and junior and athletic director at Howard College in Big Spring, Texas. Stayed there for 15 years. In the meantime, did a lot of work with Perfect Game. I've worked, events for the last 20 years. Initially did a bunch of just freelance scouting for them and writing reports and things like that. They kept trying to hire me away from my full-time coaching job. And 6 years ago, I finally gave in and joined them. And now I run everything we do from a national standpoint in the state of Texas. National tournaments and all showcases that are run in the state are kind of fall under me. And so that's where we go from there. I would fly to Florida up until our schedule got so hectic in Texas. I would fly to Florida twice a year for the series stuff, and I would give recruiting presentations to all the age groups that as they came through that. I would fly out and hit 3 age groups at a time, fly back a couple of weeks later and do the same. And the good thing about it is I've had the opportunity to speak to the parents about the process and speak to the kids about this is what's going to happen down the line. And I've run into those parents at events over the years since then. And a lot of them, they say, hey, it's amazing. Everything you said in there is exactly the same process that it took. So I think you have an opportunity from all three of us. Obviously, with Nelson still coaching, Tom sees it every single day from all over the country. I've been on every side of it, just to have the perspective of how the recruiting process actually works, what you need to do, what's important, what's not, can be really beneficial.
I think you're muted, Nelson.
Lost your volume.
There we go. Now I'm unmuted. It's a good thing I was muted because what I was saying made no sense whatsoever. No, but you were saying that those parents that you run into down the road, things played out kind of as you suggested they might. And, I think that's the big thing. And looking through the people that are on this call here tonight, you got 13-year-olds, you got 17-year-olds, rising seniors. And that kind of, leads us into the first point that we're going to talk about here. And that is, when does the process start? And all three of us had similarities and differences in our own recruiting journey. So in your guys' opinion, how do you answer that question? When does that process start?
Brady, you want to start?
Sure. I would tell you, just like that slide says yesterday, I mean, that's a terrific answer. I hadn't really thought about it, but if you have not begun that process of investigating the schools that you want to attend, regardless of athletics, that process needs to start almost immediately. You need to be in contact with those schools. Even if you don't think there's an opportunity that they're going to recruit you, you need to find out on the academic side to any school that you potentially might want to attend, what it's going to take academically to get into that school. I mean, that's I tell this to people all the time, especially if you're looking Power 5 Division I schools, you will always get more money academically than you will get athletically in baseball, just because of the scholarship limits. And the process of what it takes to, because some of those schools, if you do not have baseball or athletics on your side, they can be virtually impossible to get into if you're waiting too late in the process. Certainly need to line up tests. Your testing with pre-SATs, SATs, ACTs, all those things, need to get those lined up and in order. And then, like I said, reach out to the schools. And, and I always suggest this to people too. Find somebody you can really trust around you, a coach you can really trust, and ask them, what level of play would best suit me today? I mean, obviously everybody's going to improve, but where am I today that I mean, like if I didn't improve very much over the next 3 years, is there a level that I could play? That's where you need to start. Those are the schools you need to reach out to. And if you outperform those schools and you get, started to get interest at high level Division I or Power 5 or Pro Scouts start showing interest in you, then you can continue to uptick and contact schools, but don't wait on schools to contact you. I mean, it's a process. There's so many times. I mean, there's 400,000 players in high school every single year across the United States, and a coach can't possibly know all of them. I mean, the PG database is huge. We don't know all of them. They pop up all the time as seniors, kids across the country that we've never seen, never heard of, never found out anything about, and they're very highly projectable kids. So I reach out to schools and get the process started, but take control of it. You have to be an active participant.
Yeah. Thanks. So to answer that question also from another perspective is, if this is a timeline question, I think everyone needs to realize, and again, when you look at the list of people who are on through the chat, and you've got now Hawaii all the way down to Florida and across the country and different age groups, like Nelson said, the truth is baseball is a spring sport, right? So ideally, the early signing deadline, your senior year in high school, you want to know where you're going to college in a perfect world in the fall of your senior year. And if that's the case, you haven't played your senior year in high school yet. So the truth is, in a baseball or a spring sport recruiting perspective, a lot of your recruiting is probably going to be done your sophomore summers and sophomore spring summer and your junior spring summer, because that's ultimately college coaches end up finishing the summer after your junior year, going back and, at certain levels. I mean, the early signing deadline is going to be in November, right, of your senior year. So there are guys who are signing letters of intent in November of their senior year. I was one of those players, and I think, time has changed a little bit, but I signed after my senior year in high school. I really was just about to graduate high school when I signed a Division I scholarship. That is hard to do these days, but it still exists because there's still guys who get hurt during the spring. There are guys who underperform, and there are college coaches that are scrambling to find their guys to get drafted. And there are college coaches that are scrambling to fill roster spots that open. But from a college coach's perspective, and again, both the guys on the call here are college coaches or have been college coaches. These guys are always trying to fill their recruiting roster and be done with the recruiting process as early as they can. I mean, right, guys, like you want to be done if you can recruiting and have guys committed to you, ideally going into the fall of their senior year. So you're kind of in the spring, go out and coach your team, knowing that there's guys are going to fall off, guys are going to get hurt, guys are going to underperform, and you may have to go fill a spot. But if I'm not mistaken, you guys are trying to identify players a couple of years in advance. So it gives you time to follow them, gives you time to check on them, talk to their coaches, see them play at tournaments and stuff. So as Britt said here is, if you are considering playing baseball or any sport, the next level, it really makes sense for you to get going today, whatever that today is for you, whatever your age is, in the process of, as Britt said, identify schools you think you want to go to. Make sure you got your stuff together, whether it's your grades, your video, a scouting report, any kind of profile that you have available for sharing. And make sure any schools you think you want to go to, they have you on file. So if you are an 8th grader, there are ways to introduce yourself now, or at least research what schools you think you might want to go to, knowing that list is going to grow and it's going to ebb and flow of schools you like and schools you don't like. But if you don't start identifying schools or looking at what interests you in a school, I mean, there's guys too that are transferring once they go to college. I mean, you might go to college and ultimately transfer after a year. So the idea of having knowledge of schools that you like or schools that you pursued might continue off even once you commit to a school. But anyway, the point is, to this question, the process starts now, regardless of age. And for some guys, it can be more aggressive than others, depending on your age. But know that identifying schools you want to go to and making sure they have your information is the key to this whole process. And that's a right now thing, pretty much for everyone probably on this call.
Yeah, and a little bit of an interesting factoid about Perfect Game. You said before that baseball is a spring sport. If I'm not mistaken, the reason that Jerry started Perfect Game in the first place is because in the state of Iowa, it's a summer sport. So the process is even a little bit more delayed, and his own boys had the deck stacked against him a little bit compared to the rest of the country. And I know in Iowa, parts of Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin, that's still the case. So everybody, regionally is facing different challenges, but the key message there is just be proactive, guys. It's building out that network, and it's putting yourself out there and learning how to communicate, and seeing all the different opportunities as they are. Tom talked a little bit about the timeline there, and we're going to run through this. Feel free to take a screenshot of it. I also put a little QR code up at the top there, because all this information lives within our website and also within your profile. But just some real important dates that you have to be aware of. First, nothing prevents you as an athlete or as a family from reaching out to schools, as Britt suggested. But by contrast, when you're talking about at the NCAA level, for Division I coaches, they can't contact you until September 1 of your junior year. At the Division II NCAA level, that's June 15th. So they give them a little bit of a head start compared to the D1 coaches. But then when you're talking about all other levels, Division III, NAIA, junior college coaches like Britt was and I currently am, we are able to communicate with you. And what is unique is that, one might group when Britt was at Howard with me at Harper into the same category. But the reality is they're two totally different worlds of junior college baseball. Britt at the Division I high profile junior college was dealing with a lot of guys that were probably heavily recruited by Power 5 schools, that were getting heavily followed by scouts, and their timeline was extended. And for one reason or another, whether it was that they wanted to go into the draft after a year, or maybe there were some academic limitations, or they wanted to just play more ball, right, Brett? I'm sure you'll get into that about the junior colleges. They made that choice. And then on the opposite end, as a Division III junior college where I'm at, it's a little more challenging. We don't have athletic scholarships. We're dealing with a lot of players that are interested in leveling up. They might get Division III NCAA or NAIA interest coming out, and they want to get to that next level. So a lot of the guys that I'm getting, that process happens a little bit later. But I think the important thing to recognize is that regardless of where you're at, the reality is there is some place out there for you if you really want it. You just have to be willing to put yourself out there and be proactive, like we're saying. So the recruiting go ahead,
Nelson, real quick. So Mark
Yep.
asked a quick question on here. Just I think it was Mark or Mike. I think it was Mark. Just on how you get information to a college coach, and I think we might touch on that coming up. But a quick answer to your question there in the chat was, pretty much every college out there is going to have a website, and they're going to have a online ability to either email or student athlete questionnaire. And I would say that if you've got a school you like, make sure you get in their system. Make sure you go, even tonight after this call, if you want to go to a school's website and go to fill out their student athlete questionnaire, the positive to that thing is you're in their database. You might get some form letters, you might get some invites to camps, but at least you're in their system. And if they ever hear of you or hear of your son, or if it's a player here on the call, you'd rather get information and knowledge of what's going on at the school you want to go to than them have no record of you existing and you graduate high school and say, hey, I never went to that school that I loved, but they never knew you existed. So step one, if that was the question that was on the chat a second ago, would be tonight, go fill out the student athlete questionnaire on the sites of the schools that you want to go to. That's a good first step.
The other thing I would add to that is don't email the head coach of a Division I school, because it's just going to get deleted. Go onto the website, find out who their operations director is or their volunteer assistant. Those are the guys that end up handling emails. Email those guys. Let them know what the situation is. You want to get on, you want to get on a mailing list, you want to get on an invite list for camps, whatever it is. But if you're mailing the head coach directly, they're not dealing with those emails. So they're probably getting deleted or straight out of the system or put into a folder that's, that has thousands of emails in it, just like that they will never see.
Sorry guys, my video keeps cutting out. It's kind of weird. No, absolutely true. Get that information out there, fill out that questionnaire, look up those guys, and same thing with these next few slides here. We're not going to walk down each bullet point. We trust that you all have the ability to read through them. It lives within your profile. But a few key things that come up in each of these freshman year, sophomore year, junior year on up is the importance of video. And Tom, there's no better person in the world to talk about video than you. So when it comes to evaluating players, short of going out to a showcase, which this weekend coming up, for instance, is a Division I dead period, right? So they can't go out as it is. Plenty times throughout the year we're either on the field or, we just can't get out and see the 400,000 plus players that Bert referred to. So when it comes to evaluating players, video is the key component. And Tom, you want to talk us through what that video should look like and what they need to do?
Yeah, no. So yeah, I kind of said that early on, and for those who were here at the very beginning, just from a background standpoint, I was more of an athlete than I was a video guy. But I lived through the process of getting recruited in both football and baseball. And I learned early on when I sent, and this is how old I am, I used to send VHS tapes and mail to college coaches around the country and hope that they would see them. And I went on a recruiting trip once and the coach said, hey, you see that stack of tapes over there? He's like, I haven't seen any of them yet, but I know yours is in there. And it came really interesting because he's like, I need to see players to recruit them. I can't just recruit you off a piece of paper or your stats. Stats are deceiving. Stats, and I'll say this, my kid's 13 years old, and I coach my daughter's softball, 11-year-old, my son's baseball, 13. I run a little league in Seattle, and we have scorekeepers, and those scorekeepers are awesome, and I love them, but they don't all know how to keep score properly. And so the statistics that our kids are looking at on Game Changer, whatever app you might use, are not always accurate. Well, I know at the high school level too, we're also dealing with sometimes kids or student volunteers that are keeping score. And so there's so often we hear about players that are batting 500 or they're batting 400 or whatever you're batting or whatever your ERA is. We all know at this level of the coaches level and the pro scout level that statistics are deceiving. They're not always 100% accurate, especially at the amateur level, right? And that's fair. It's not no one's fault. No one's bad for it. If someone doesn't know how to give errors or gives everyone a hit because they put the ball in play, that's going to happen. So the point is you got to see someone play. And I think you guys all agree too, who are on the call here, is, you can hear about a top prospect in the minor leagues coming up for your favorite team, whoever that team is. And until they show up and they're on your big league squad and you watch them swing a couple times, you watch them pitch on the mound or play the field, I promise you don't have as much of an opinion of an athlete, whether it's whatever the sport, until you see them play. And ultimately, it's real common sense. Video from a recruiting standpoint is the same way. College coaches, baseball is a limited budget sport. I know when you watch the World Series and the super regionals and stuff, you see what looks like a lot of money going into the sport, a lot of broadcasting, but baseball has limited scholarships, and football and basketball are typically the big money sports that have more recruiting budgets than baseball does. And so for baseball coaches, they are relying on tools with which to see players without having to buy plane tickets or travel across the country. Or even when you go to a big tournament and you're playing at a big tournament and there's 20 fields across town, how does a college coach know to go to your field versus someone else's field? And he's at the same tournament that you're at, and it's your favorite school in the world. And the truth is, video is a phenomenal way to see athleticism, body type, and basic mechanics, right? Like you can't put together a highlight reel of all of your home runs or all of your diving plays, because typically, especially in baseball and softball, those games are not always filmed as well. And even if they are webcast these days, by the time you get zoomed out and know the field, it's really hard to kind of identify some of the play. So stick and ball sports, baseball and softball, because we film all sports. Skills videos are pretty much the primary recruiting tool. It's the ability to see repetition. If I see a guy or girl swing, and I say girl, I always kind of include baseball, softball. We'll stick with baseball here. But when you see someone swing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, you kind of get some patterns. You got to get some repetition. You see a person field some ground balls. Are they constantly on their toes? They have good action towards the ball. Do they have good arm angle when they throw? Pitchers, stride length, balance points, arm action, arm angle, that kind of stuff. So repetition is often the first step of seeing someone and trying to figure out if you have interest in knowing more. There's so much to the recruiting process, and video is one piece of it. But the goal is, with a good recruiting video, is can I show what I'm capable of doing now at mostly full speed? I mean, I say that because sometimes go out and do a skills video and you're not in a game. So someone argues like, hey, it's not my full speed play. But at the end of the day, if you can show your athleticism and your core basic baseball mechanics, and a coach says, okay, you've got my interest. I'd like to know, how are you doing on your team? I'm curious your statistics. I need to know your grades in your school to know if I'm even going to recruit you. But the point is, back to just this conversation, and again, I could go on for a long time, but you guys should comment on it. But at the end of the day, video, athleticism, phase mechanics, and body type are things that video can really show. And the idea is to get the coach's interest in wanting to know more, or possibly coming to your games.
I would add a little bit along the lines of stats. Never in 20 years coaching Division 1, 2, and 3 in junior college, never once did a high school player stats determine whether we were recruited or not. Stats might open somebody's interest into coming to see you play, but hitting 500 at a 2A high school in the middle of the country, as opposed to hitting 360 at a 6A high school in the middle of a major city with maybe some of the best competition. How do you compare those as a coach? You don't. And so you don't go by the numbers. But I'll generally tell you this, the numbers they're looking for are not the hits, this and that. If you strike out a bunch in high school, you're probably not going to hit a lot at the college level. I mean, that's really great hitters have innate timing. And so, and timing is where strikeouts come from. If you have innate timing, you're probably not going to strike out a bunch as a hitter. If you're a pitcher that really commands the baseball, you're probably not going to walk a lot of guys. Because if you have a great arm, you're 90, 92 miles an hour in high school. If you're playing at a really low level, you're going to get a lot of really bad swings just because kids are overloaded. They don't see that at that level. But if you take that 90 or 92 and place it into a college where guys are seeing that every single day and you can't throw strikes, you end up not pitching. And so those guys end up not recruiting you, basically. So don't get tied up in the stats. Get tied up in just daily, look for any way to improve your game. Every day, pick something. I'm going to do this to try to improve. And not on a measurable or anything like that. Improve in playing the game. And that comes down to how you prepare, how you practice. And the last thing that I will add into that is there's absolutely no substitute for physical strength. I start every showcase that I run off with this comment to the kids that are in attendance. Before we get started today, our showcases measure where you are today, but there's no substitute for physical strength. So when you leave here today, the first commitment you need to make is to the weight room and getting physically stronger, because that will always help you no matter how much you improve skill-wise.
Gosh, I love that so much. Couple things really sticking out there. One, isn't it incredible how from my son's 7 years old, coaching his little 8U team, to the college guys, on up to the big leagues, like the same message is clear. Like, throw strikes, put the ball in play. right? Throw strikes, put the ball in play. And then as you get more physical, all of a sudden those strikes become firmer. The balls in play become a little bit harder. But it's really a simple game that we tend to overcomplicate. And same thing with the stats. Like the only stat that might jump off the page is if you're hitting 12, 15 bombs, a little bit of an outlier, right? But outside of that, like there's nothing on there that's really gonna, you're even gonna look at. So I really appreciate you said that, because we have parents all the time that are, their nose is so deep in the book. Hey, that should have been a hit last game. Or I'm like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
This book's for internal use, so we could put together our best lineup and whatever else. Nobody's looking at it. Like, so let's just get over ourselves and, like you said, keep getting better. But really, really good points all around there.
I had one more thing on there, Nelson, on the video thing.
Yep.
I think it's just, and you guys both touched on it, for the parents and for the players. These guys both mentioned that college coaches, recruiters, even pro scouts, they know what they're looking at per age. Like they know what they're kind of looking for from a freshman to a sophomore to a junior, and they look at all those ages. So I hear all the people say, like, listen, I don't want to do a video now. I'm going to wait till
Right.
senior year. And obviously waiting until your senior year, we talked about that earlier, might be way too late because the coaches have already filled the position that you're trying to compete for. But if you are doing one at an early age, again, you're showing athleticism, and athletes can't hide athleticism. What I always say is, if you can go out there and you got good movements and good bat speed and good arm speed and good strength, to Britt's point, they know you're going to likely improve in the areas that you're good at now, you're doing now. They expect you to, and they'll watch for that. They're not deciding your freshman year and your freshman video, but you can identify yourself or interest someone early on by showing video when you're young. It's not just to wait until that final clincher. So be careful waiting too long to have that extra tool in your arsenal, because other people could be supplying information, whether it is video or other information, to coaches, and those coaches are then saying, okay, I've got my list. I've got my 10 guys this year that I really got to make sure I get out and see. And then you send your stuff, but they've already got they're already on the road, right? Like, so the idea is, goes back to timing, and it goes back to video, is we know you're not fully developed when you're younger. It doesn't mean you don't have to share your playing ability.
That's
No doubt. And it's a good measuring stick year over year. You can compare and contrast yourself. It's a development tool. And, one thing to add on to that is the confusion, I think, around looking the part, right? You have parents and players out there now that think looking the part is having the sunglasses and the extra, elbow guard and all that stuff. Looking the part is the way that you run to the back of the line after you take a ground ball. It's how you come on and off the field. It's the breath you take before you deliver a pitch. It's all those little nuances. When you see it, it's there at 10, it's there at 12, it's there at 16, it's there at 24. That's what looking the part as a ball player is. And those things don't disappear. Those things are very hard to teach, but those things really stand out in the best possible way, whether it's on video, whether it's live in person at a showcase, on the ball field, wherever. So when you see that guy out there and you're like, man, something's different about him, parents and players like pick up on those little things, because that is what looking the part is. So just something else to think about there.
I'll add a little a story about that. So my son grew up on a college baseball field. We homeschooled, and every day he was done in time to come out to the field for practice. So he didn't learn to play catch with little kids. So he didn't develop bad habits. He had unbelievable actions because he played catch with, first round picks and D1 guy, all the time. That's how he learned to play. His actions were beautiful. Field ground balls, throw, transition to throw, things like that. And I would hear from parents all the time, man, your son's going to be great. And me as a college coach, I'm hearing all this and I'm watching him, and I'm like, you guys don't understand. His actions look great at this age because he doesn't look like other kids his age, but he's not a great athlete. And there's a difference. As a coach, I could see it. Everybody's trying to heap all this praise on my son. And I'm like, baseball is not even going to be his deal. I mean, I could see it. He's not going to be athletic enough to do the things he needs to do to be successful in baseball. And, and I had this conversation with my wife many times, and she's like, how can you see that already? And I'm like, because I understand what it takes to get to the levels that these people are talking about. and he's not going to be that. And sure enough, you know, he hit 7th grade. He fell in love with football, and that's all he plays now. He doesn't even play baseball anymore. But it's you're not going to fake out the guys that are going to be the decision makers. It doesn't. They could care less how you dress and what you're wearing, like you were talking about. You know the taped wrist and the eye black and all that. It doesn't matter. It matters how well you play the game.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. I've talked to so many college coaches about this too, is you might see something that interests you in a player, whether it's on video or someone calls you that you trust and says, you got to see this player. And you're like, all right. And you make an effort to go see a player. And I've heard this a million times from the coaches, is oftentimes when a college coach goes to see a player, they don't need to see if this guy can swing the bat anymore, because they kind of either already seen it or they've already heard it. What they really want to see is what you do in the dugout, what kind of leader you are, how you do when you fail. You know, if you're a pitcher and you're getting shelled when that scout is there or college coach is there, the coaches want to know how you handle failure when they're visibly watching you more than anything else, or when you strike out. Are you the guy that hits yourself in the helmet, or you guy that goes back to your dugout and cheers on the next batter saying, pick me up? Like, that's the kind of stuff more than ever I hear from coaches saying, when I watch a player, it's not, can he play? I'm probably there because I know he can play. That's the reason it got me there. I've heard he's successful. I've heard he's good. But I remember when I was getting recruited myself, coach called me and said, he goes, I never called you as your family. You know, there's some NCAA rules on when I can talk to you and your family. You know who I called when I was recruiting you? I called all the coaches in your league that you play against during the course of a season. And I said, what kind of guy is this guy? Like, when you play against him, when you watch him play, what's he look like out there? Do you want to play against him? Is he a guy you fear? Is he a guy that, you know, is he a jerk? Is he cocky, or is he a competitor? Like, so remember, guys, and when you're playing this game, and yes, you're working on your skill sets and your strength on stuff on an individual basis, you better be working on just yourself as a team player and as a leader, because that's being looked at also if you truly are going to get recruited to the next level.
You have to fit the culture of whatever that coach is looking for too. And I'll be honest, it doesn't matter how talented you are. If you don't fit the culture of the program that they have, they don't want you, because you're going to be, no matter how talented you are, you're going to be more destructive to what they're doing in their overall goal. And believe me, I know. I mean, it doesn't take many bad guys, just from a culture standpoint, to really drag a team down. And so coaches, I mean, they guard that. Every now and then they have to take a risk because they may be in a pinch. They lost some guys to the draft. They did, and they're trying to fill some holes late. And they have to take a chance on a guy that maybe they wouldn't, just from a character standpoint. But a lot of times that's difficult to overcome. Finding the right fit as a coach when you're recruiting, finding kids that either they're, you know, it depends on the culture of your program, but find guys that want to work and want to push the guys around them to be better. They're not just concerned about themselves. Like, they enjoy seeing their teammates have success as much as their own success.
Yeah. And to that point too, coaches are recruiting the players. They're not recruiting the parents. So for actually both audiences in this call here, parents, you got to realize too, it's not, it is, and players, you're the one that they're watching, because you're the one, like Britt said, needs to fit their culture. They're going to watch you in the dugout and say, would that guy be cool in my dugout with the players that are already part of my family? And I'm about to introduce that guy into our family if I do recruit this person. Moms and dads, you're going to be up in the stands. And what the last thing they want is someone who's always coming down the stands and saying, getting in their ear and talking about their kid, or want to talk about their kids. So from a college coach perspective, I hear this also all the time. And that is that, you know, parents can actually deter or hurts the recruiting process of the player if they're overwhelmingly communicative to the coach, when it's really the kid that the coach ultimately needs to communicate with or watch or judge if that person is going to fit in their program, not mom and dad.
Yeah, parents only going to get the kid crossed off a list and never going to get them added to it. That's a for sure thing. So getting to this next one right here, and we touched on it a little bit earlier, but as far as the various levels and, you know, where you qualify to play, Britt, you had a great point before about asking somebody that you trust, hey, where am I qualified to play now? You know, knowing full and well that you're going to develop and all those other things. But it's wild to me just how unfamiliar most people are with the different division levels, right?
Yes.
And all the variety within each one. And, I'm sure one of your national championship teams, if you put them, dropped them into a Power 5 league or at the Division I level, you're going to compete all day long. But
Yeah.
from the outsider looking in, you're a JUCO,
Well,
right?
I used to tell this story when I'd give the recruiting presentations. So that in '09, when we won the national championship, we had 19 guys on our team that signed to go Division I. 17 of those guys ended up on campus. The other 2 of them got drafted, and then we had another 4 that were just drafted that they were going to sign the entire time. And so that's a roster of 35 guys, and that's 24 of them that went on to play professional baseball out of the junior college. And so our second baseman, who ended up being MVP of the World Series, he hit in the 8-hole for us, and he went the next year, and he was a starter at Texas A&M and the whole bit. And this was a guy that hit an 8-hole in a junior college, went and was an everyday starter at A&M. So their recruiting coordinator at the time came to see us play on a Tuesday night. And after the game, he stops our coaching staff and he says, A&M was in the Big 12 at the time. He said, I'll tell you this right now, that you guys in Texas would be neck and neck to win the Big 12. Well, Texas, we won the national championship that year, and Texas finished runner-up to LSU in the College World Series that year. He said, I've never seen a team that's as deep and as talented at any level as you guys are here. And so when you're talking the very top end of the top end, that national championship level team in any level, they can go compete with any other team, because baseball is not always, it's not like football. You're not going to take the best Division III college football program and go beat Alabama. It's just not going to happen. But baseball is a skill sport. It's not always about size and this and that and accolades, because the pitcher really controls the game. And anybody that can really pitch can dictate an entire game and can really shut down anybody. So if you can really pitch, you can handle that. But that's what keeps the game even at every level. That's why teams don't go undefeated, because the game is too even. Anybody can go out and have a great day and beat anybody else. But the talent level from high-end schools to high-end schools is very similar. One of the best Division II conferences in the country is right where I live, and here in Texas. And I get to see a lot of them roll through the town right by where I live. And unbelievable guy. I mean, I went out and saw, it was probably about a month ago now, I went out and saw Lubbock Christian and University of Texas Tyler, 2 NCAA Division II programs. Every kid on the field is 6'2" or bigger. They're all physically well developed. Hey, they can all play catch. They can all run. They all handle the bat. The pitchers throw strikes. They all have velocity with secondary pitches. And this is Division II. Now, it's a very, very good Division II. But those guys can go out and compete with plenty of Division Is. I mean, everybody thinks every Division I's created the same, and they're not. Because not even for all the Florida States and all the SEC schools that have 11.7 scholarships, there's a lot of Division I's that are not even fully funded to the 11.7. And so the gap, a lot of times you're better off going. Billy Wagner, I mean, should be a Hall of Famer in my opinion. He played at Division III Wagner, at the time. There's plenty of guys in the big leagues that, I mean, they went to small schools. And so you can play anywhere. There's all kinds of talent at every single level. I promise you that in college. If you're planning on going to college, you're not going to sneak in anywhere and just show up and be a star. I mean, if you're really good, you're going to be a star, but you're not going to sneak your way into playing time. You're going to have to compete no matter where you go. You're going to have to compete to play, because everybody in college is good. I mean, at every single level, there are good players, really good players at every college, everywhere across the country.
For sure. I had a conversation with one of our guys in our travel program here and he referred to one of the schools as his fallback. And I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, you realize they're number 11 in the country.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, but it's a D3. I'm like, have you watched them play? Like every guy on the field is, an all conference, all area, all state, multi-sport stud,
Yeah.
right? And like I said, you only need those guys on the field and a couple arms, and all things are equal. I think the big difference maybe at some of the bigger schools compared to other divisions might just be depth of talent, right?
Yeah.
You might have 2-3 arms at some of the smaller schools, whereas, your your large Power 5 schools, you're running 12, 15 deep in most cases. So I think that's really the big difference between those. But Tom, I know it looked like you had something to say right there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, there's two pieces to this. The question on the screen, where am I qualified to play, and the things that you guys just mentioned. Then there's two pieces to this. One, I hope everyone's goal in this call is to have the opportunity to play their sport for continuation for 4 more years, right? Whether it's 2 at a junior college and then 2 at a 4-year, but the goal is to play at the next level, right? So we don't always know where we're qualified to play. And I think that's why we're on this call too, is I don't know what level my kid or myself, or I'm able to play, and or what I will be able to play if I'm a freshman or sophomore now. So there's 2 pieces that I always love to say, and that is, one is, don't worry about knowing. It's not your job to know what level you're qualified to play. Figure out schools you'd love to go to and see if that coach is interested in you. I have seen Division I college coaches at a high level love a kid, and someone in the exact same conference that plays the same team multiple times per year see a family and say, no, I don't think you could play at this level. So at the end of the day, the decision of whether or not you could play for a school or at a level is really going to be a coach by coach decision. Now, are there industry standards? Are there measurements that are, indicators of certain velocities for pitchers that should throw a certain velocity to play a Division I high level? Yeah, there's indicators, but these guys just prove too, if you can play, there's guys that can play and have beaten top level teams that are junior college teams or NAIA teams. There are teams that are, and if you look at the draft, the Major League draft now, I mean, you're seeing guys from all levels getting drafted from, obviously there's high school and there's international, but you're seeing NAIA, you're seeing JUCO, you're seeing Division III, Division II, Division I players. So it's not just the guys you see on the College World Series that are going in the draft. I mean, it's amazing how many guys are in the College World Series that aren't drafted. I've always been surprised. I always think that almost all those guys are, for sure, but it's not the case. So if you truly want to play at the next level, and that's your reason for being on the call, try to put yourself in front of decision makers of the places you want to go, as opposed to just hoping, right? The hoping to be found is the number one probably problem in recruiting, is I hope I get found. So if you hope you get found, do you hope you get found by a certain level? No, hope you get found by a school where you can play and love going to school there. So don't decide where you can play. You might get some people tell you what they think. Reach out to the places you want to play. Let that coach say, yes, I think maybe you can play here, or I don't think you can play here. Obviously, if a coach even gets back to you and tells you that, they're doing you a favor. They're giving you an honest answer. Most coaches and a lot of coaches won't even reply if they're not interested. So sometimes it's nice if they do and say, I'm not interested. But the point is, and this goes like, and parents might understand this too, if you wanted a job, you'd find a company you want to work for, you'd send them your resume, your information, and you would follow up. It's the same thing here. If you want to play somewhere, figure out where you want to go. You may not know what level you're qualified to play. Let them decide, because they're the ones at that level, and just make sure you get them good information and be respectful of them. So that's kind of what I always think of that.
For sure. And just to run down the numbers here, Britt referenced the 11-7 before. When you look at the 1600 plus, I think there were actually 1643 this year. You're talking about 300 Division I programs, about 250 Division IIs, just about 400 Division III programs. At the junior college level, there's another 4 to 4. Well, the NJCAA junior college level, there's another 4 to 440, split between the 3 divisions like we were talking. And at the NAI level, I think it's just a touch below 200. And then there are some smaller ones that don't conform to any of those governing bodies, like out where Tom lives out in the Pacific Northwest. They have their own junior college. What's it called? The
NWAC.
NWAC, right?
Yeah.
And same thing with the, I'm sorry, place I've never been. You got to invite me out to the lake house. And then in California, same thing. Their junior college system is separate from the NJ. So there's a ton of schools out there. And when you look at the scholarship numbers, those are also a little bit goofy, right? It says there the roster versus equivalency. Baseball is an equivalency sport when you're talking about the NCAA level. So 11.7 represents the total number of full scholarships. That's tuition, books, fees, room, board, the whole works, that they can give to the entire roster. If you're looking at a 35-man roster, which was the limit pre-COVID and is probably going to return back there within the next year, of that 35, 27 of them can receive something. They don't have to, but can receive something. So that leaves 8 non-scholarship players, and the minimum amount they could give, and again, this changed because of COVID, but will probably return. The minimum they had to give was 25%. So that's at the Division I level. When you're looking at NCAA Division II, that's down to 9 scholarships. Nice thing about Division IIs is that more schools are able to stack money, which means that they can combine academic and athletic, whereas at the NCAA Division I, they can't always do that without some special, hoops that they have to jump through. And then when you go to Division III, there are no athletic scholarships. However, if you look at the breakdown of numbers, there's significantly more financial aid available at the NCAA Division III levels. A lot of those schools, they have huge endowments, they have alumni funds, they're able to give whatever they want. They can say, hey, Tom, I love your SkillShow polo, here's $10,000. Not quite that easy, but there's a lot less restriction around it. A lot of schools will inflate their sticker price, and you might see, though, it's 55, 60 grand a year, knowing full and well that they're going to reduce that to all the student body, most of which end up being athletes or involved in extracurriculars. So that's at the NCAA level. When you're talking about junior colleges, we talked before about that there are the 3 divisions. For the junior college Division I, they're able to supply 24, again, full rides, where it could give room and board, meals, the whole works, up to 24 players. At the Division II level, they could just cover your schooling, but not room and board. And then, like I said before, with me being in a Division III, I can't supply any of that. So it's just kind of luck of the draw. But we have some things in district that help those kids out. Last one we didn't talk about was NAIAs. NAIA programs can give out 12 athletic scholarships, but that above all else, they're able to stack against some significant money. How we were talking about the Division IIs before. So I know in years past, some of the NAIA coaches that I've talked to, they'd be in situations where some had 25 full scholarships that they could use. Others would have 5, right? So it's really, NAIA is kind of a mixed bag of how much funding they have, how much they're able to capitalize on that 12, and how much they're able to stack that money. But the important thing to know is that there is financial aid at all levels. And then combining that with that last one, do you ever dream of riding the pine? Find a place that you're going to come out of school with little to no debt, and find a place where you're going to be able to get on the field. If you're aspiring just to put on a jersey, that's your own prerogative. But I don't know really in the long term how beneficial that's going to be. And same thing with going to a place just to write a check, right? Like, money's hard to come by, and believe me, you'll thank us later if you're able to find that place that's able to subsidize some of your education, so you're not saddled with that for a long time. So.
Yeah, I mean, think of it this way too. God forbid you get hurt your first day on campus. Try and figure out a school that you want to go to and that you want to graduate from. So whether it's Division I, II, III, I mean, there's reasons for looking at schools in your geographic area because they're close to home, and there's probably a bunch of different schools where you all live that within a couple hours that are different divisions. But if they're close to home, you have the ability to play at that level, you have the ability to play, and it really shouldn't matter the level if it's a school you'd want to graduate from, or if you want to be an engineer and you look for good engineering programs, or if you've got family in Texas and you want to go to school near family, like there's reasons to target schools or areas. But remember this, if you were to get hurt, and I think there are percentages, I don't know what the total percentage is of number of college athletes that don't complete their full eligibility at the school they first choose to go to. It's a pretty high number. So just because you end up choosing a school out of high school doesn't mean you'll finish playing your sport. I see plenty of players that choose to stop, could get hurt, God forbid. And the question is, do you get to go to a place that you want to be at? And that shouldn't be related to the division of their sports. It should be related to, are you close to home? That's important. Do you have a major important? Is there a religious reason you want to go to a place? There's plenty of reasons to look at schools outside of just the sports. And as Nelson said too in that last bit, do you want to go and ride the pine? So many of us and so many of our parents can't wait to go to the next barbecue and talk about how their kids now playing on a team in the regionals or in the World Series, and or they're watching their football team on TV and we're saying our kid goes there, and that's awesome. But if you're not playing, and this goes to the players too, if you really aspire to play somewhere, go somewhere and walk on because it's a big school and you love the school and their football program, whatever. But if you're not playing, I know when I was playing pro ball and I was near the end of my career, I had way less fun being in pro ball and not playing for 2 weeks or for a week and a half and not getting any at bats than when I was struggling and I played every day. Like, you want to go somewhere and play. You don't want to go somewhere and just say, hey, I got the jersey, to Nelson's point. You want to play the sport that you love as long as you can. And all of your opportunities are going to come from being on the field. So be realistic, be open with yourself, and be honest, and also just give yourself more options. Just because you love a school doesn't mean they're going to have a position available for you in your position the year that you graduate. If you're a shortstop and they have an All-American shortstop who's a freshman, but you're determined you want to go there and you may not see the field for a couple of years, you may have to consider other options. So get a list of schools, be realistic, do some research.
For sure. I'm going to run through the next few slides here just for the sake of time, so we can get some of these Q&A. But the next one on here says, what's my coach's role? And, I spent 7 years as a high school head coach. I've started a travel program 15 years ago. And beyond what Thomas said earlier about the biggest mistake being, waiting for somebody to come see you, probably the second biggest one is expecting your coach to do everything, right? It's just not even reasonable to believe. And a lot of guys go to high school or they try to find the next travel program expecting that to happen for them. And if you really just break down the numbers, I did some there. When I was the head coach of the high school, we had 70 players in the program, 23, I think, on our varsity team. In our travel program, we generally have about 150 or so high school players. If I just spent 30 minutes a week on each of them, that's a 100-hour work week. It's just not going to happen. Okay. And what you guys have to realize, all the things that we've said before, be proactive, get your name out there, develop your skills. Those are the things that the coaches are designed to assist with. But it's kind of foolish to believe that they're going to be able to handle that entire workload. And my rule with all of them is like, listen, I'm not going to work harder for you or work harder than you for you, right? I'm not going to pick up the phone and try to call 10, 15 coaches if you can't reply to that email from that Division III school that you haven't heard of. Okay. And there's nothing that looks worse on a coach or a program or a player and a family for that matter than if they're saying they want to play ball somewhere, but they're not replying to the coaches that are reaching out to them. Right. We said, I think, a number of times tonight, go to the place that wants you, go to a place that, is going to recruit you. They're going to get on the field, do all those things. Okay. So you have to reply to them and just start building that momentum, and see what's available before you just start big leaguing people that are showing interest.
Yeah,
so again,
can I add to that real quick, Nelson? Sorry, I know I don't want to keep us going too long, but
no, we're good.
Yeah, guys, just think about this. So if you're a coach and you've got a number of players in your team or in your club, and you've got, hundreds of players either, and all the parents think that they signed up because you're going to get them recruited to a school. Well, there's a couple of things you got to think of. One, your coach doesn't know every college coach in the country. He doesn't know. And what I know for sure is your coach doesn't necessarily know all of their kids' grades and interests and where your families are. So if you think your coach is going to start dialing for dollars to figure out schools, or call the couple of coaches that he does know really well and is maybe known to have placed a couple guys, there's only so many roster spots at the schools that he probably knows well. And if a coach puts his neck out in the line for a player and that player doesn't go to that school or it stops going to class, stops getting grades, like, it's really tricky for coaches. It's not tricky for a coach to be a great reference point for you. Like, ask your coach if you can be a reference, and you reach out to the schools you want to go to and say, hey, please call my coach. He said he'd vouch for me. But asking your coach to go home every night and make calls on your behalf to contact schools that you may want to go to or may not want to go to, or if a coach finds a school that's a great fit and the college coach loves you, and to Nelson's point, you guys as a family, like, why would we ever want to go there? I don't want to go there. But your coach put himself out there for you. What happens is that coach suddenly just stops doing that more and more every year. Like early on, they may be aggressive. At the end of the day, they realize I can't be your advocate. You're going to have to be your advocate. And I'm happy to be here and be a reference for you. So utilize your coaches, high school and travel ball, private instructors, anyone else is a good reference point for you, and use them as your references. And you go do the work and then ask the college coaches to say, hey, I've got someone I really trust and is a baseball expert that can vouch for me. But don't ask those people to go out and do the work to figure out where you think you want to go, what your grades are. They can't have that conversation with the coach. So don't expect them to. So just set your expectations in a better place starting tonight, hopefully.
Yeah, and also same with mom and dad. You guys are doing plenty, right? You're driving all over the country. You're investing in hotel rooms and, you know, fancy uniforms and whatnot. Put the onus on your son, right? Like, you can assist where needed, but they need to steer the ship. I mean, this is their kind of voyage into becoming a man. And if you're going to start out by holding their hand through the whole thing, it's going to make it significantly more challenging, you know, once you pass them along to the next person, to the program, whatever. So really put it on them to do the work, and you assist in areas that, you know, when it comes to financial aid, when it comes to living arrangements, when it comes to maybe registering for classes or looking at majors, you can assist in those areas, but have them handle the communication, the research, and ultimately where they want to go. It's them sleeping in the dorm room, putting their head on the pillow. You know, you're not the one that's going to be out there, so let them do that heavy lifting. So again, I'm for the sake of time, we're already at an hour here. I'm going to fly through these. Again, that QR code is going to get you into your profile right away. You know, I think most people on here through the Perfect Game registration have already started that process. But just some ways that NCSA can help. You know, the things that the guys pointed out earlier is how I ended up working with NCSA and speaking and, you know, representing our brand with all of our partners. But just the major things, the online presence. That's something that, you know, Perfect Game has, that a lot of different places have. There's a place for you to post your video, for you to post your metrics. I'd say the big difference between the NCSA profile and one like Perfect Game is that you have more control. In order to change your stats on a Perfect Game profile, you need to go to a Perfect Game event. We want you to compile all of your information here, whether it's, you know, at a showcase, it's at a college camp, it's at whatever. We want it to be a one-stop shop, kind of your LinkedIn of college recruiting. The college search map, we talked a lot about being proactive and doing that research. You know, here's a real easy tool for you to sort through by geographic location, by price point, by majors, to narrow down from that 1,600 plus down to something that's more reasonable. Recruit Match, that takes your preferences, the school's recruiting history, puts them in a blender, you know, with the fancy terms, an algorithm, and comes out with a number that says how likely that school would be a good fit for you. Not how likely it is that they'll give you a scholarship or that you'll be their starting shortstop, but a percent, you know, good fit for you. Path to college, you know, what's next? That's probably the number one question from everyone, regardless of where they're at. This walks you through step by step what you should be doing, from getting that initial email out to making your first phone call to going on a campus visit to negotiating an offer, you know, when it comes to that point in time. And then finally, your progress. So for every school that you interact with, you have a series of check boxes. So for each of those things that you do, you know, staying organized is a big piece of this puzzle. If you can't keep control or keep an understanding of what coaches and schools that you're talking to, it's going to become overwhelming real quickly. So here's a real easy dashboard that, you know, shows you what you're doing with each one of those schools. Then I'll hand it off to Tom, and he can talk a little bit about how SkillShow can help you out with those recruiting videos.
Right. Yeah. No, I know we're running on time. So, but two things real quick. One, it just for this slide right here. Obviously, we do video work, right? We try to help families get good quality video that they can share with decision makers, college recruiters. So, for all those that are on the call that are going to Perfect Game events or been to them, we've already filmed you if you've been to one, and if you're going to, and I say events, I'm talking about their showcases. We don't film all their tournaments. there's way too many tournaments, and game action's a tricky one to film because you never know how someone's going to play. And even if you go 3 for 3, they may not, maybe 3 hits where you just kind of threw the bat out there and didn't really take your swing. So we film all the perfect game showcases. So if you've been to one or going to one, know we'll film you. We have over 500 camera operators around the country that we work with. If you have a team or a private club or a group or even individual need to get some video work, by all means, you can contact us. We'd love to send someone out for you. We edit home videos. If people have stuff that they've accumulated over the course of a season, we can help you. And to answer one of the questions just came in a few minutes ago is, where do you put your video? I mean, the answer is to get it online, right? NCSA has got a phenomenal resource for player profiles. Perfect Game has a phenomenal player profile system that has a huge audience. Both these groups have great audiences that have the potential to get seen. Posting on YouTube makes sense. It's a quick, easy searchable. But the thing is, we're not trying to put video in a place where it can be found. Wherever we put it, we want it to be able, so we can direct it towards the people we want it to. If other people see it, great. But the point is, get it in a place where you can share it with the audience you want to. That's the part you can control. And then we have partnerships and stuff to try to help, get your video seen. And we're coming up with a new profile system ourselves to help kind of streamline the process. So that covers that slide. And then Nelson, can we real quick just answer one of the questions that came in a while ago from Ron, just about college camps, and do you have to go to a college camp to get recruited by a school? I've got some answers, but maybe Britt or you guys want to just answer that. How important is going to the college camp for a school you want to go to?
I think it really depends on what type of player you are. If you're a 14-year-old you're not physically developed yet and you get invited to a camp at a major Power 5 school, you're paying the salary of the volunteer coach. If you're a very physically developed sophomore who is one of the best players on your high school team at a young age and you get invited to a college camp, they're probably interested in recruiting you. I mean, that's just the honest truth of it. Is there's all kinds of people that fill college camps, but the volunteer coaches, and that's how they make their living, and so they hustle camps. And that doesn't mean that they can't identify kids at a young age out of their camp, but that's the difference of who's getting invited to be recruited and who's getting invited to potentially maybe will follow you as you develop, but you're really paying the bills right now.
Yeah, I've always said there's nothing wrong with going to a college camp if it's feasible. If you've got the weekend available, and if it's not, you're not flying across the country and spending a ton of money, and it's a school you want to go to and you want to work out on the campus and maybe meet some of the coaches, great. But to Britt's point too, a lot of college camps are meant to make money for the program in the off season. And so they'll bring a lot of bodies in there, players, some of the kids and the players will help run the camp. And that's awesome. But
that doesn't mean it won't be a great experience for you.
Right. It still could be great and still could be fun and worth doing. But to the point of the recruiting side, it's not always their primary recruiting tool is to host a camp and expect that top recruits are coming in. They're fun events. They're great. And again, you can see campus and you can do a lot positive stuff, but it's not a mandatory piece of the recruiting process to go to their camp to get recruited by that school. Was kind of, I think, to answer the question that was posted.
And I just add on to that. Every family has their own set of circumstances and resources and everything else. So it's hard to answer that question for everyone. And along with that is you don't always have to do everything just with the end game in mind, right? Like there are plenty of camps, to your point, that are great experiences, that are great for development. Like I remember I went to one camp when I was growing up and picked up a few things about hitting that I still think about to this day. They're going to help on that process, on that journey. Just using a quick analogy, that'd be like when you're younger going on every date and being like, well, am I going to marry her? Right? Kind of a hard place to start from and setting the expectation level a little bit unreasonable. Use it for the experience, use it for all those other things, and then you will develop that relationship. And there's nothing wrong with asking the coach either. If you're at that point, hey, am I coming out there with a realistic opportunity to show out in front of you guys? Have you guys seen me play before? Or is this just an experience? And if they're gonna bold-faced not tell you the truth to your face, probably not a place you want to be anyways. So that kind of makes the decision a little bit easier as well.
I would say too, one piece of advice that I always people ask me all the time, and one piece of advice that I give is really evaluate how much you love to play baseball, because that is it's when you get to the college level, it is a job, and actually getting on the field is the reward. But if you don't absolutely love it, then you're wasting your time. I mean, honestly, not the glory of getting a hit when it matters or striking out a guy, in a big situation. I mean, if you don't absolutely love playing the game and everything that goes into preparing for it, you're not going to like college baseball, because it is 6 a.m. weight room, 7:30 breakfast, 8 a.m. class to noon to lunch to early work to practice to dinner to study hall to whatever you need to do for the next 30 minutes to be in bed and be back up by 6 a.m. And it goes year round. It doesn't stop. It's like SEAL training that never has an end. And if you don't absolutely love it and want to be committed to that kind of structure and discipline and things like that, then it's not for you. But you can't fake your way through that. It's not something, because you'll get there and 3 weeks into it, you'll be like, this is just not for me. And that it goes to Tom's point, go somewhere where you want to go to school for sure. And if baseball's on top of that, it's great. But I see so many kids, they go with the expectation of, hey, I'm going to walk in and I'm going to play as a freshman. And when you go in as a freshman, you're going to look at some of the guys on the field and you're going to think they're 30 years old, because they're grown men and they've been there for 4 years of nutrition, weight training. I did it. I started school. I went into a Division I program at 17 years old. And the guy that I'm supposed to be coming to beat out is 25 years old. He's a 5th year senior who's been redshirted. And I mean, literally, I was in the 4th grade when that guy graduated high school. And he and I are competing for the same position. I'm like, what's going on? But that's the situation you can be in. I mean, don't be afraid right now to play up in age groups. Yeah, I mean, if you have the desire and talent and ability to push yourself to go, because that's as soon as you graduate high school, you're up in age groups. I mean, you'll be playing 24U, right? The day you graduate. And if you're lucky enough to get into pro ball, quickly you're going to be playing 40U in the minors. And so you have to learn, you have to love the game, but you have to love to compete, because it's all going to be competition every single day from there on out.
In all things competition.
100%.
And I'm
100%.
That sounds glorious. Like, I want to get back on the field right now. I'm fired up.
No, I know. If you, like I said, if you love it, there's nothing better. I mean, if that's the discipline that you have or you crave, or in the improvement cycle that you're constantly looking for, you can't do it for the external rewards. If you're driven internally to be as good as you can possibly be and accept challenges and, test yourself and see how hard you can push yourself academically, athletically. I mean, your time management skills will go through the roof in a sink or swim manner. Either you're going to be great or you're not, but you're going to find that out really quick.
Yeah, I mean, these are life skills, right? Like, and I tell this to your little leaguers and the parents of little leaguers, like all this process of playing sports and playing athletics, or even if you play instruments and stuff. I mean, these are life skills to your point, if you're going to get better grades because you want to play at a college. I mean, the moment your grades drop, colleges start dropping off your possibility list.
Yep.
The higher your grades, you have every opportunity to go to any college. The grades start dropping and certain colleges will come off your list of even being able to go to. So if you do better in school because you want to play sports, if you work out hard in the weight room because you want to get a potential scholarship, these are all things that are teaching you life skills that even when sports are done, you've learned, as Britt said, ways with which to focus on a goal, go after the goal. This whole process of recruiting, it's a self-marketing process. Doesn't mean you're saying you're good or bad. It does say, though, that you're saying you're available and you want to be at a certain spot, and you'll do that when you're looking for jobs in life. So the process is pretty cool. It's a life skill process that you're learning now. It's related to baseball or whatever other sports you play, But at the end of the day, like this is, it's worth doing. And to Britt's point too, you got to love it if you're going to pursue it. But that goes for whatever you're going to end up pursuing in life.
Yeah.
I got a question here. It says, is it fair to say that doing a showcase eval would be more impactful than attending a particular school's camp? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
Here's my thing with showcases, and this, I mean, showcases are a huge part of our business at Perfect Game. But go to a showcase if you have tools to showcase. The showcase itself is not going to get you recruited. I mean, if you go to a showcase and you are a well below average runner, thrower, hitter, and fielder, I mean, then you have no business going to a showcase. The showcase is designed for people to showcase one of the 5 tools that they have. And if it's a plus tool, absolutely go to a showcase. If not, you would probably be better off going to a camp. And like I said, it depends what your end goal is in going to the camp. But the showcase is designed for you to put that one tool, those 2 tools you have, or maybe 3 tools you have that are above average compared to everybody in your class. It's to put those on display. Whether you're a great runner, thrower, hitter, you have tremendous power or unbelievable fielding skills, that's what a showcase is for, to get that stuff out. Because these are the things I can do, and that's what a showcase is for, is to display those. And so that doesn't always, like I said, it depends on the camp and why you're going to the camp, and then and probably the age you are when you attend the camp, where you are physically when you attend the camp. I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I'd say too, like if you want to use it as a measuring stick or a development tool, like we were talking about with the video before, by all means do it, but then have a plan in place to improve year over year.
Yeah.
Right. And so many people get caught up in all these, unique kind of niche ways of training. I'll say for 99% of the families and the kids on this call, if you want to run faster, right? You just need to get out there and run. If you want to throw harder, just throw harder. If you want to hit harder, swing something heavy, swing something light, swing over and over, hit the ball as hard as you can. And until you get to that kind of top of the pyramid, you don't need anything fancy. You just need to do over and over. And you'll see those gains, especially, at your guys' age.
Yeah, it's kind of a sum of all your efforts, right? Like going to a showcase is great, but if you live in California and you're going to go to a Florida showcase where there's mostly Florida regional schools, but you want to go to school within California, like maybe that's not the most best choice of funds and stuff. But if there's a camp of a school you want to go to and you're feeling like you're in a good place and you want to play in front of the school and try and see the campus, maybe the campus. There's no exact answer. It's a sum of all your efforts. And I mean, we always said, and I know we're ending soon, so we always said there's 5 key things you need in the recruiting process. Number 1 is academics. Number 2 is you want a scouting report of someone other than mom and dad, someone who is a third-party reference who knows what they're talking about, whether it's a Perfect Game Showcase, which are outstanding, and most of you guys may have come from PG. Then you also want a video. So you want academics, scouting report. You want to have a video on file at all times for college coaches, because they might be looking at video in the middle of the night when they're at home and their kids just went to bed. So you never know when a coach can see you. So you always want to have it available. You're going to want to have some kind of online profile that has updated information. That stuff that, PG's got stuff that they see at the events. NCSA has stuff, allows you to continue to update as well. And the final thing, and this goes to kind of the question you asked here, is all those tools are great. And if you have all those tools in your back pocket, that's awesome. But if you don't have a dialogue with the coach of the school you want to go to, you're not getting recruited. So if you've got all those tools, you think, I'm done. I bought the video. I've got a profile. I've got, Scott, I went to PG Showcase. I don't have to do anymore. Well, you do. You need to find a way to create a dialogue with the schools you want to go to. So that's your final piece. And those are the 5 things that I typically would kind of end on in the recruiting process.
And questions keep coming in about showcases versus camps. It's the hot topic.
I tell this because I run showcases and we're a showcase company, but I tell this to the kids that show up all the time. I mean, just going showcase to showcase, trying to improve your numbers is not the ticket. There's really no need. This is my personal opinion. There's really no need to go to more than one showcase a year. You go to a showcase and like I said earlier, it measures where you are that day you attended the showcase. And you're going to get an evaluation of where you compare to the kids in your class at that showcase. That showcase is going to show you where all the areas you can improve on compared to the guys in your class that are getting recruited or at the top of that class. Go work on those things. Get in the weight room, long toss, continue to get better in your speed and run, and that's, use the resources you have available to you for free. You have a track coach at your school. You want suggestions on how to run a better 60? Talk to your track coach. The one thing I would tell guys all the time, they don't want to put in the work to be fast at the 60, because you want to be great at the 60, you go run hundreds. Because everybody has a good 10-yard start, but it's who has the endurance to carry that over 60. Well, it's generally guys that can really run. Well, it's not fun to go run 100 yards at a time if you don't run fast, but that's what it takes to get better. Or you don't have the desire to long toss every single day to get better, to improve that arm strength. So when I come back to the showcase, hey, my arm strength, I'm 6 to 8 miles an hour better than I was last year. My 60 times dropped another 0.3 of a second. I'm so much stronger in the box because I've been in the weight room, and now the ball jumps off my bat. I'm not dragging the barrel through. All those things are the things you improve on, but you don't just go showcase to showcase. You go work on the areas you're deficient, and you have to give yourself time to develop those areas. And if you do that, then the showcase is fine, because you come back and you will see improvements. But it takes it takes a lot of work, but it's going to take work to play in college as well.
Yeah.
One last thing here, and then we'll kind of close it down. Go back to this question. It says, any general pros and cons in selecting a Division I, 2, or 3? If you have the opportunity, how do you prioritize academics versus a baseball reputation? Anyone want to take a stab at that one?
One more time.
It says,
Sorry.
any pros and cons in selecting a Division I, 2, or 3? If you have the opportunity, how do you prioritize academics versus baseball reputation?
This is me. There is such a, and Tom, you can say this because you played professionally, and it is, people don't understand how difficult it is to really make a living playing professional baseball. I mean, you can sign for a great bonus and have that eaten up in 6 years of minor league non-pay and funding yourself in the off season. And that bonus that you had, it's not that you blew through it. I mean, you used it to try to compete to get to the big leagues. And even in the big leagues, there's such a small percentage of guys that make enough money that when they finish playing, like, they don't have to work if they don't want to. There's a very small percent. I mean, we all see the Mike Trout contracts and the Bryce Harper contracts. Most of those guys are making $400,000 a year, and they're paying taxes in 13 or 14 different states on those. And by the time that year goes down and the travel and what they have to spend to train, they're not making as much as everybody thinks, they are. You have to be really smart with your money. So in that, for me, it's find a way to get tied into a school where you can get a great education and you have the ability to network through that school, to have resources when you are done playing to get into the job market and have great connections and have the ability to continue your career and grow. And so that can happen at any school. It doesn't have to be Division I, 2, or 3, because it's not always about how well did I play at that school as to how connected I am to that recruiting network or that job network through through whatever school we're talking about. It's a great resource to graduate from any college because you have connections now. So for me, it's always, I'm always and I told this to our players all the time, use baseball. Don't let baseball use you. Use baseball to get the education and everything you need out of the game. Don't let baseball use you up as a player and then spit you out because you didn't take advantage of everything that you could have as a college baseball player.
Well said. And I just shared in the chat box, every year NCSA does a best colleges for athletes across all divisions, across all sports. And it takes into account like the desirability or, you know, how, I guess, cool the school is to an extent, how much kids want to go there, the cost of it, the graduation rates, and how they performed in their particular sport. And again, kind of combines those different variables and shoots out a rankings of what those best schools are, you know, meeting that criteria. So something to look at, something that might open up your eyes to some places you're not familiar with, and also compare and contrast across the different division levels. So we are actually coming up on 90 minutes here since first pitch. And I know we were shooting for an hour, but that's good because hopefully everybody's coming away with this with a lot of information. And like I said, on a lot of those slides that I kind of skipped through, a lot of that can be found within our website, within your profile. There's a ton of free resources in there. If you have questions about that, again, feel free to reach out to me. I put my contact info down there in the chat box. Any of these guys, I'm sure would be happy to help and answer any questions you may have as well. But that's really what it comes down to, guys. We wouldn't be on this call. We wouldn't spend the time tonight if we didn't have a passion for helping you all get to the next level and to help make that easier on you. So hopefully, you know, we're coming away with something. So we appreciate you, you know, Britt and Tom, thank you guys for joining and making this awesome. You guys have anything in closing you want to pass along?
I'd say this is, go ahead, Britt.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is a great forum. Thanks for those who are still here. Look, from the three groups that are on here, Perfect Game, NCSA, and SkillShow, just know this, from the founders of all three of these companies, I mean, all these companies were started for the right reason. That's to help families. You know, Perfect Game is an independent scouting service that is evaluating talent around the country. And they've, you know, they service so many different colleges at all different levels by giving them reports and profiles and players to be able to see them and gain knowledge of them. NCSA does an amazing job of working with the families individually and consulting with families on the process and all the tools and the database and the connecting with college coaches. They're fantastic. And again, with SkillShow and video, like, we all started for the right reasons, and we had all the intentions of being able to provide help to you guys as families. So please don't be afraid to ask. We're on here because we just want you guys all to know that, yes, we have knowledge, but we're also just really interested in trying to help. So, you know, if you have questions for SkillShow, email video@skillshow.com. That's a real simple thing to remember, and we'll get back to you and help answer. And these guys, obviously, with Perfect Game and NCSA, you have access to getting a hold of them as well. So thanks for coming on board, and we appreciate these guys so much for what they do. And we're lucky to partner with them and work with them.
One thing I would add, if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. I mean, find people that'll shoot you straight and give you the right answers. I mean, that's more than anything, because it's just direction. Everybody, until they've actually been through it, you know, everybody's new. And so, you know, I still have people from the recruiting presentations that I would give in Florida that still email me to this day, you know, asking questions about the process, because their kids, maybe the first time they heard it, they were 12 and now they're going through it. And you never know. And every kid's different, you know, just because it went this way for older brother or older sister, it may not go the way for the next one. So always continue to try to educate yourself on the process, but always keep the end goal of the academic side in mind as you go through.
Yeah.
Work hard, have fun, keep pushing, guys. So we appreciate you all, and we will see you down the road on the ball field somewhere.
Good luck, everyone.
Have a great night.